And we are live. Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome. Come on in. We have a real treat tonight. We are actually doing what I am referring to, or what we are referring to, as a crossover event tonight. So I have Dr. Catherine Toomer here with me, and she actually also does a live on Tuesday nights. So we decided to do one together this week. So you're in for a real treat. So we're just going to give a few minutes for other people to come in, and then also to give Dr. Toomer a chance to stream in her group. We welcome all the folks from Dr. Toomer Talks. Welcome, everybody. Good to have everybody this evening. If you're here live, say hello in the comments. If you're watching replay, hashtag replay. And we'll get started in a few minutes as soon as Dr. Toomer gives me the high sign that she was able to start a watch party.
Well, I'm not sure if I started a watch party. And I think it's because your post in your room is not public.
Yeah, my personal page.
Yeah, I'm on your personal page, but it says just now, it says friends only.
Okay. All right. Let me
And I
change this.
think that's why. But I shared it on mine. So hopefully that means that people can see it. I don't know.
Well, let me see. Let's see. I can look at your page real quick and see if I can see it. Just bear with us a minute, folks. Technology can be a challenge. Yeah, it's on your page. It's
Yeah, it's
streaming on
fine.
your page.
Okay,
Okay, it's
that's
there.
good. That
All right.
works. I just shared
Welcome.
it. I figured, but it just has to be public on your page so that people can actually
Yes.
see it.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So again, welcome to Level Up Live and Dr. Toomer Talks, the crossover event. I have Dr. Catherine Toomer with me this evening. I'm going to read her bio and then we'll get started. I'm very excited to have Dr. Toomer. She's a good friend and a strong supporter, and I'm really excited to have her and introduce her to you guys tonight.
And I'm excited to be here.
So, Dr. Catherine Toomer is a community health and family medicine physician, serial entrepreneur, a certified hypnotherapist, and neurolinguistic programming practitioner. She has most recently founded Total Wellness and Weight Health Center and created the Total Wellness and Weight Loss Program to prevent and reverse chronic disease using a biopsychosocial approach in those who are overwhelmed and giving up. Dr. Toomer created her program over 20 years ago to lose 100 pounds, reverse her insulin dependent diabetes, and survive postpartum cardiomyopathy when she was told she had a 50% chance of living 5 years. Dr. Toomer is a TEDx and keynote speaker, author, coach, and obesity treatment advocate. Welcome, Dr. Toomer.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm
I'm
so
so
glad to be
happy. I'm
here.
so happy that you're here and happy to share
Oh,
your story with everybody. So I think
thank
we'll
you.
just kind of jump right in because I want you to have an opportunity to really share the story because it is so compelling and brings up a lot of things that are going on in our society. Back then
Mhm.
and now too.
Yeah.
So I've read in your bio or shared from your bio that you lost over 100 pounds
Hmm.
and that you had a serious health scare
Hmm.
some years ago. So why
Yes.
don't you tell us your story?
Well, initially, I gained weight over years of being in stressful situations, medical school, residency, marriage, new job, new child, then a second child. I had two children within 3 years. And just the combination of all of that, just my weight just kept getting more and more and more and more. I'm 5 feet tall and I was 220 pounds. And 1 month after my daughter was born, well, before she was born, I was actually an insulin dependent diabetic, and which got worse during pregnancy. And then a month after she was born, I went into congestive heart failure, and my ejection fraction was 15%, which for those who don't know, the normal is 55 to 65%. And I was told I had a 50% chance of living 5 years. And I knew that I couldn't do much about my heart, that it was going to either get better or not, and there wasn't a whole lot, but I knew what I could do was reduce the work my heart had to do. And so I decided I was going to work on getting my diabetes under control, which meant having to come off insulin. And to try and lose weight because I could control those things. But nobody would help me because of my heart. I was told I was too high risk. So my endocrinologists were like, we're not touching your meds. It's keeping you controlled. We don't know what it's going to do to your heart, so we won't touch you. Weight loss programs were like, you have too many medical problems. We can't help you. Which made me realize that they may not be all that safe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got concerned about that. And so I ended up creating my own program. And through trial and error, by just determining what controlled my blood sugars and what didn't. And this was before ketogenic diets. And one of the things I realized was that by eating more protein and eating less carbohydrates, my blood sugars got controlled and my weight started dropping. And within 6 months, I had lost 60 pounds. I was off insulin, was able to get off insulin. And I stayed there for a little while and I kind of fluctuated a little bit, 5 pounds. And then over the next 20 years, I lost another 20 pounds. And then earlier this year, um, there have been new medications coming out for diabetes, which have been found to be heart protective as well. And so, since I have congestive heart failure, my cardiologist put me on the medicine to protect my heart. Well, almost immediately, I dropped almost 40 pounds. I mean,
Wow.
it was so fast that I was actually sent for a cancer workup. I went to a GI doc. I
Yeah.
went to because I didn't, even though I had been using the medication for years to help people lose weight, I had never seen that kind of weight loss before. And that's when I realized that I was walking around with a blood sugar issue, even though I thought my diabetes was controlled, it really wasn't.
Right.
And my weight was a reflection of that. And the more I studied it, the more I looked into it, the more I realized how many people are actually walking around with, glucose issues. And that's why so many of these new medications actually work, and why so many people are actually gaining weight, holding on to weight, and having difficulty losing weight is because their physiology is fighting against them. And so I became pretty, uh, I would say adamant, just an advocate,
Yes.
maybe a little bit soapboxy, but
No,
it
I would say
really
outspoken. Not
outspoken, yes.
soapboxy, outspoken.
And just because I realized that we've been put, a lot of shame has been put on us for being overweight, but nobody explains that a lot of it is beyond our control, that our appetites, our cravings are largely driven by blood sugars, and our blood sugars are largely driven by our physiology, not necessarily our food. I eat way more now than I did when I was 220 pounds.
Wow. So
And yeah.
yeah, so tell us a little bit about this program. I mean, it's really admirable that you developed a program for yourself, that you took the initiative, you took charge, and decided that something had to be done.
Mhm,
Thankfully, you actually had the medical knowledge to be
mhm,
able to craft a program for yourself.
mhm,
And I certainly commend you for that. But can you tell us a little bit more? Not so much the details, I guess, but just a little
mhm,
more about it, because so many people you hear about, they lose weight, but then they gain it back,
mhm,
all within a year or two. And you've
mhm.
managed to keep all of this weight off for 20 years.
Yes.
That's impressive. And then you're telling
Mhm.
us you eat more than you did then. So we do need some information.
Yeah. Well, you see me eat. I eat.
I
So
have
it's not,
seen
yeah.
I have seen her eat. She eats dessert. She eats good
Yeah, I
stuff.
eat whatever I want. It's just a way of doing it. And one of the things I realized was that there was, and essentially what I did when developing my program was that I pushed the envelope as much as I could. I was testing to see how much I could eat of what I wanted and still keep my blood sugars under control. And so what I learned was that if I wanted dessert, I had to, control what I ate before I had dessert. And so all those things. And so what my program ended up being was really about managing protein. A lot of programs are about what not to eat, and mine focuses on what to eat. And what you do eat isn't, salads all the time, or,
Yeah.
vegetables and only the, mine is eat what you want, but in an order and in a way so that it does not affect your body adversely. So you can still lose weight, keep your weight off, and still eat the food you want. And so there's a way to do that. And for each person, I say there's like a stew. We all have a stew, and that stew kind of keeps us going. And those each ingredient of that stew is different for each person. And so it's just a matter of figuring out how much of each ingredient you need. Some people need a lot of exercise. When I was developing my program, I had new onset congestive heart failure. I couldn't exercise. It
Yeah.
had to be all from other things. And so you pay attention to how you eat and in what order. You pay attention to how much you move. You pay attention to wellness. Stress is probably one of the under observed, one of the under appreciated causes of weight gain. And so having a way of staying calm, of being calm and staying calm and keeping cortisol levels down, that stress hormone down is really important. But then there's a fourth, and that's medication. Actually, there's a fifth, which is surgery in cases where it may be necessary. And
Yes.
there's nothing wrong with getting surgery. It is not cheating. Medication is not cheating. It is taking a health condition and fixing it. And that's what and so really that's what my program ends up being, is just looking for the cause of weight gain and then addressing those causes. And if that cause is a medical cause, then fix that. If it's depression, anxiety, if it is, you know carbohydrate dysregulation, glucose dysregulation, which is really most of us, then that's what I treat.
So your program, it sounds like, is not a one size fits all,
No.
because I've noticed that with a lot of weight loss programs out there, they tell everybody to do the exact same thing. Everybody's exercising the exact same. Everybody's eating the exact same meal, and it sounds to me that what you're telling us is that is not effective. That you really do need a tailor-made program for your individual physiology.
Yes. And what those programs, they can work. And for people who are really, really disciplined and have a lot of willpower, they can do those things. I personally don't have that discipline and don't have that willpower. And I didn't need something else to tell me I failed. I was already sick. I had two children under the age of 3. I was, a doctor who couldn't practice because of my illness. And I was like, I've got enough. I can't do anything else that's going to make me tired and make me judge myself.
Well, it
And
also empowered you, though, to be able to, to develop something and find that you could do something about it.
yes,
Because, as someone who struggled with my weight for many years, I know how it can be. You feel defeated.
yes. And it really do. And some of it is because of the messaging we get. Like, for example, with me, I gained weight over 10 years, but I wanted it off in 6 months.
Yeah, yeah.
you know
Don't we
and
all, right?
exactly. And so learning to be patient, that was actually probably one of the biggest things I learned during my process, was to be patient, and not to derail myself because of my impatience. And but it was very empowering. And but it was also, prior to that though, it was very shaming. I got shamed a lot. I mean, even from our colleagues. I go
Yeah, oh,
talk
yeah.
to someone about something that was bothering me, and the result was always, well, then lose some weight. I was like, but
Like it's as simple as that.
exactly. And one of the things that nobody ever talks about is weight is a symptom of something else, and we never focus on that something else. And that's really, really important, because that something else is different for every person. There's some physiological similarities between everyone, but there are also some differences. And so what I try to create is something that is customizable, so that anyone can take it, use it to adjust to their own life, because it has to fit into your life, otherwise
Right.
it won't work. And that's the social of the biopsychosocial. But also, whatever you do now, you need to be able to do when you're 90. Otherwise, what happens, whatever you benefit you get, as soon as you can't do it anymore, then all the weight comes back.
Yeah, there's a rebound.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that is one of the beauties of your program, is that it is sustainable and something that you can apply, and it's easy.
I
Because
hope so.
definitely tell people that it's easy.
Well, I use what I've kind of coined as the memo method. I like to say Mimo also. It's like kind of finding Mimo, your Mimo, but
Yes.
it's MEMO. And basically what that is minimal effort for maximum outcome. I was exhausted. I couldn't stand up and brush my teeth. That's
Wow.
how tired I was. That's how um my heart was just functioning at such a low level that I couldn't pick up my child and walk across the room. I couldn't do both. And I had to choose what activities I could or could not do at any given moment. And so when I decided that I had to lose weight and do something, I couldn't do something that was going to make me more tired. It had to be relatively easy, otherwise it would have been too exhausting and I would have given up.
Yeah, and it's
And I
so
almost
hard,
did.
and as we talked about, weight loss is so hard, and um, and the responsibility is put on the individual, or the
Hmm.
blame. When
Yes.
people see a person who's overweight, a lot of times they think, okay, well, they've eaten themselves into this situation,
Hmm.
and that's, and what is your experience with that line of reasoning? You find that to be accurate
Absolutely.
or no?
This is what I find is that we assign success to a program and assign defeat to ourselves.
Mm,
And so I lost all this weight on Weight Watchers, but then I gained it back. I lost all this weight on Jenny Craig, but then I gained it back. No, the program didn't help you keep it off, is what happened. And so, and I know that with me, um, my motivation was largely impacted by depression. Had severe depression. I already had chronic depression, had postpartum depression. Cardiac illness causes depression.
mm,
New diagnoses cause depression. And I was just crushing under the weight of depression. And so, even though I knew I had to do something, my motivation was at zero. And so, the first thing I did was treat my depression. And then I had the motivation to do all the other things. And so, that's why biopsychosocial is so important for me. The psychology of weight loss is important because it addresses the stress that causes weight gain, but it also addresses the anxiety and depression that prevents you from being able to get up and do things. I mean, we all know that those times where we think we're procrastinating, we blame ourselves because we're not doing what we know we should be doing. But if you ask yourself why, and you treat that why, or you address that why, either with low level, low impact exercise or with medication or a combination of those things, then it makes it easier then to do the next things. And my philosophy is use all the tools at your disposal. Why push a boulder up a hill when you can get a tractor and pull it up?
yes. Right, right, right. When it's easier, which actually brings us to the medications,
Hmm.
because which can be a little bit controversial,
Hmm.
because there are people who feel like taking the medication is cheating. There are physicians who feel like prescribing the medication is cheating.
Hmm.
You should be able to do this on your own. If you need the medication, then it's not going to be sustained.
Okay, tell somebody who has hypertension to do the same. Tell someone who has cancer to do the same.
And I've heard you say this. So obesity is an illness like
Hmm.
any other illness and should
Hmm.
be respected as such.
As such. My feeling is this: if obesity was simply because of overeating, which we all know it isn't, because many of us know that, fat does not take as much energy to maintain as muscle. So when your body is predominantly fat, it doesn't take as much to keep it there. So you don't eat as much. You really don't.
Yeah, and we all
And
know, at least I know skinny people who eat crazy amounts of food.
yeah, it's not about
Right.
exactly. It's not about food, and it's not about exercise always either. And so, um, one of the things I always say is, if it were simply because of food, no other medication would work to help you lose weight. The only medications that would help to lose weight are those medications that completely suppress your appetite, like Adipex, which I don't even prescribe. I've never had to, because I've always been able to find the cause. And sometimes there are causes you can do something about, and sometimes there are causes you can't. But there's always a cause. And so when because a lot of the medications that work the best work on glucose regulation, it's pretty clear that it is glucose dysregulation that causes the weight gain in the first place and the difficulty in losing it. Otherwise, those medications would not work, like Manjaro, like Ozempic, like Wegovy, Trulicity, all of the the newest and best weight loss medications out there. And it is not cheating. No one calls anyone else a cheater when they treat their diseases.
So now those medications that you mentioned, and you said that they help with blood sugar regulation, are
Mhm.
they generally covered by insurance?
Some are. And this is the problem we have with insurance companies. They wait until the person actually has diabetes before they'll cover them instead of helping them prevent diabetes. However, that is changing. We're starting to see that change. Um, for example, Wegovy and Ozempic are now covered by Medicaid for
Oh,
adolescents.
okay.
Yeah, and it's going to increase next year. So there's a organization called the um, Obesity Advocate Coalition. And what they're doing is trying to, again, go into insurance and say, look, you can't label obesity disease. You can't say obesity causes problems for all the other diseases and then not allow us to treat it.
Right. Yeah, because, why don't you tell us about some of the other things that obesity can lead to?
Well, for one, it causes a lot of inflammation. It gives off chemicals that just cause inflammation. It causes problems with mobility because of joint issues. It causes issues with social issues because of interaction with people. There's a lot of bias. There's a lot of prejudice around obesity or being overweight, and which is so relative because you have some people who overweight here, and then you go to another country and people are like, "Ooh, you're too skinny." So it's relative,
Sure.
but um, but there are social ramifications, self-esteem ramifications, which then kind of spills over into everything. And so estrogen issues, hormonal issues, fat cells put out a lot of estrogen and estrogen-like substances, and in men that can cause serious issues with fertility, and in women can cause issues with fertility also. But it also affects our moods quite a bit. And so it's just so many different things. But it also, in and of itself, can be caused by insulin resistance and then cause insulin resistance.
Mm.
So it
So
starts
almost
this
like a
vicious
feedback.
cycle.
Yeah.
It's a vicious cycle.
So, what is your approach then when you meet someone, when someone wants to work with you? And by the way, tell us the different ways they can work with you.
Oh,
But if
okay.
someone wants to work with you, what is your initial approach to them? How do you, because you mentioned about it being an individualized
hmm
program, what is your initial approach? How do you tease out the
hmm
issues that are causing their particular problem losing weight?
Okay. Well, the first thing I do is just listen. The more I listen, the more I hear about someone's history and patterns. I can usually tease out the patterns that I hear. That sometimes people are saying things that they think are totally irrelevant, but they're significant to me. I can
Okay.
hear it. Sometimes they'll say things like, "Yeah, but I'm really worried about going to Thanksgiving," and they won't mention the food. They'll mention the stress of their family, and that clues
Mhm.
me in that there's some family toxicity going on, which is probably started in childhood
Yeah.
and then has carried into adulthood, and that's what is affecting their relationship with food. It has nothing to do with the food itself, but the family dynamics. So just listening is the first thing I do. Then I screen. Do behavioral health screening. I do medical screening. I do a food diary. And what I do a food diary for isn't to tell people what not to eat. It's basically just to tell me what they prefer and then what their pattern is. So I can then say, well, then eat this with it, so that if you want your macaroni and cheese, eat your macaroni and cheese. Just have this along with your macaroni and cheese. If you like cookies, fine, eat cookies, but then drink a protein shake with it. But what ends up happening as people's blood sugars get controlled, their cravings change and their appetite changes. So a lot of the foods that people like to eat, the sweets that they're craving, like I crave, um, I have a sweet potato pie, actually a pumpkin pie I'm not gonna lose my card, but I have a
Oh, yeah, I
pumpkin
don't
pie.
know.
I'm from Michigan. I'm allowed. So anyway, my daughter made made sweet potato pie. So she were cool. But I have almost a whole pumpkin pie sitting in my refrigerator, which 20 years ago it would be gone in a day. I would have eaten the whole thing by now. And it's been in there now for and I've had a piece every day. Some one day I had two pieces, but it's because my cravings, and I don't have any better willpower now than I did then. It's just that my cravings have changed simply because my blood sugars have changed, and I
Okay.
can keep my blood sugar under control, so it doesn't start that vicious cycle of wanting to eat more, wanting sweets, wanting and then it just starts.
Yeah, yeah. So, Thanksgiving, has just passed. The
Hmm.
holidays are coming.
Hmm.
What's a piece of advice that you can give us? Because there's going to be all kinds of office parties and
Hmm.
holiday gatherings and all those kinds of things. And for people who, do have problems with their weight,
Hmm.
those you mentioned the anxiety that some people feel about going to Thanksgiving dinner.
Hmm.
The anxiety of attending a Christmas party and
Yes.
feeling judged. Worried about what
Hmm.
you put on your plate. People are going to be watching. They're
Hmm.
gonna say, "Oh, look at what she eats. That's why she looks like she looks." And,
Hmm.
all of
Yep.
those
Oh
kinds
yeah.
of things. How would you recommend that we approach the holiday season?
Well, first, never go anywhere hungry. That's the first thing. Don't shore up calories or anything. Just don't go anywhere hungry. The other is drink water before putting anything else in your mouth. Our body mistakes thirst for hunger often. The other is make sure you eat protein first. Whatever's out there, there's always something that's protein. Eat it first. And even if it's not pure protein, like a protein item by itself, whatever has the most protein in it, go for that first. And then go for the other things. The more protein or the non-carbohydrate items you eat first, the more you can indulge in the desserts after.
Okay. So, you mentioned water, and I know that a lot of people are very dehydrated.
Mhm.
How much water do you recommend that we drink in a day?
Well, usually the rule of thumb is you take your weight, divide it by two, and half your weight in ounces. As long as you don't have any kidney issues and you don't have any fluid restrictions because of heart issues or whatever, um, and up to a gallon. Anything more than a gallon is just way too much. Even a gallon in itself is a little too much. It's really, but the best way to know if you're getting enough water is just look at your urine. The lighter your urine, the clearer it gets, the more hydrated you are. If it's yellow, dark yellow, if it's brown, if it's red. If it's brown or red, go see your doctor. But
Yeah.
if it's dark yellow to yellow, you're probably dehydrated. Start drinking. If it's light yellow to clear, then you're fine.
Okay. Um, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought for a
No,
second.
it's okay. I do that all
I
the time.
wanted you to tell us some of your success stories because you told us your
Hmm.
story,
Hmm.
but you do say that your program can be replicated in other people.
Hmm.
Can you tell us about a couple of the people that you've
Success story.
helped?
I would say, and this is okay, people describe me as a weight loss doctor. I do not only measure my success in weight loss because what I say is the weight that's lost, some of it's in pounds, but a lot of it's also in the things in life that are weighing people down. So if I empower someone, whether they've lost a pound or not, I consider that a success. I just want people to walk away feeling like they can do whatever it is they need to do in order to feel healthy and feel their best. However, having said that, um, everyone I've worked with has lost some weight in some weight. Um, I helped someone who was in his early 60s, had a gastric bypass, was 300 plus pounds, lost weight, gained it all back. The last time I saw him, he was down to the weight he was in his 20s.
Oh
And that
wow,
was, he was in the 150s. 159, I think, was where we left off.
it's about half
Often what
your body weight.
Yeah, yeah, and he was like, "It's so easy." And what I felt the best about wasn't so much his weight loss; it was the fact that he was having such bad ankle issues that he couldn't garden anymore,
Mm,
and he could go back. He went back to gardening, so those are the things that kind of inspire me. I had someone who still hasn't lost all the weight they wanted, but Um, Started them on an antidepressant when I did the screening and realized that they were severely depressed. And she said to me, well, like I had a couple times this has happened where I've had someone say, well, I don't really feel anything. I don't think it's really doing anything. And then I hear a significant other, a spouse yelling from the background, yes, it is. Don't stop it, please.
Keep taking the medicine, right?
But the weight may not be coming down as quickly as they want, but their whole life has improved. Their relationships with people around them has improved. Their job relationships have improved. I've had some, woman in her 70s who had been yo-yo dieting her whole life, who now has lost 75 pounds and has kept it
Wow.
off for 3 years.
Now, so then that just completely destroys the myth that you can't lose weight after a certain age.
I'm 58. I'm 57, and I lost, pretty significant amount of weight, I guess, in the last year or so. I've helped people in their 80s lose weight. There's myth that is, you're going through menopause, you gain weight.
That's another huge one. Yeah.
It's not so much that you gain weight because you're going through menopause. But what it is that it's the hormonal changes that occur. And when you address those hormonal changes, then that weight gain stops and it reverses. But a lot of those hormonal changes, the reason they happen, the weight gain happens again, is because of glucose dysregulation and what they cause, in fat production. And so, but for every, and I should say, for every person who I've helped lose a significant amount of weight, I've also helped them not sabotage themselves, and myself included. I went through this too. Um, there's a point when either comments that people are making or the way you look in the mirror doesn't mesh with who you used to be.
Mm.
And so people try to, either people or yourself, you try to pull yourself back to where you were, to the person you recognize. And it may seem like, well, you're losing weight, you should be happy you're losing this weight. Well, when it makes you look differently and you don't look the same as you did before, it's very easy to start doing things to then reverse. And if you're someone who needs medication, for example, because there is something underlying, I often get people they'll just stop the medication because someone's convinced them they were cheating, or they feel like it's just a lot of psychological things that go on with weight loss that have very little to do with the actual pounds themselves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think your program is appropriately named. Is it Total Wellness?
It's total
Because
wellness
it
and weight
does
health.
look at the whole person. And
Hmm.
then you've also mentioned the impact on all, other areas of your life. So it's not
Hmm.
just the weight loss. It's not even just your physical health.
Hmm.
It sounds like, like the gentleman that you mentioned that could go back to gardening.
Hmm.
That's huge. If that's something you really love to do, and his physical condition was keeping him from being able to do that, you've
Hmm.
given him a piece of his life back.
And that's when I say, we can save lives in many different ways. And one of the issues that I have is that people treat what I do as if it's superficial. It's just weight loss. Like it's cosmetic only. Like it has nothing to do with health. It has nothing to do with our wellness. It has nothing to do with saving lives, like you know, preserving lives. I should not be here right now. My ejection fraction still isn't much better than what it was back then. The only thing that has changed is the amount of work my heart's had to do because my weight has changed. And it
Yeah.
has saved, weight loss saved my life. It has saved other people's lives. And to treat it as if it's this superficial cosmetic process is a bit insulting
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, no, I would agree. And
It's
thank
actually
you.
a lot
Thank you
insulting.
so much for all that you do and all
Thank
that you
you.
continue to do, and being such a strong advocate for for those who have extra weight and those who want to be treated for weight loss.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I always end with the same question, or my um, iteration of the same question. And
Hmm.
so, what I would ask you is, tell us, if you have someone who one who's watching, who
Hmm.
is not maybe not quite ready to work with you yet, but they want
Hmm.
to up level their weight loss journey, what
Hmm.
is the number one thing that you would tell them to do?
Um, I would tell them to still talk to me, even if they don't want to work with me. And the reason is because I do consultations and I'll listen and I'll say, okay, this is where you should start. I don't mind doing that at all. Um, first of all, and that's really what I would say first. Find someone who will help you compassionately, won't judge you, will not shame you, and will actually give you good advice and not try to sell you something.
Yeah,
Um, I honestly, I mean, I know I'm not going to work for free. I mean, that's just all there is to it. But I really don't. It doesn't hurt my feelings when someone's like, "I'm not going to work with you," because
sure.
ultimately, I want someone to get help and to get. So I'll direct people to others. I'll direct them to other resources. And so I would say find someone who's actually going to give you information that is helpful without trying to sell you a product. As soon as someone's trying to sell you a product based on what they think you need to think twice about whether that advice is actually good advice. Talk to your doctor, get tested, make sure your heart's fine, make sure your kidneys are working appropriately, make sure that there's no underlying disease like thyroid disease, diabetes, um, any depression, anxiety, anything that can be causing weight gain. Ask your doctor about that first. And that would be the first step.
Yeah. So now I asked you earlier, and you kind of skirted around it.
Yeah.
How do we work with you? Tell us about the different ways that we can work with you.
Okay. Well, I have two ways now. I have an executive program, which is a one-on-one program, weekly meetings. Uh, it's on the internet, online. So I work with people all over the world, and but there's a limited number of people, and it is very intensive. So for anyone who just has absolutely no knowledge of where to begin, that's often a good place to start. But I
Okay.
also have a group program which is open for enrollment right now, which is expanding in a platform and what it does. So what I'll be doing starting in January, it would be weekly, one on not weekly, sorry, one on ones. It'll be weekly group live coaching, but with the option of also having one on ones with me as well. There'll be also a way to evaluate yourself, knowing exactly what steps to take to evaluate what you may need in order to lose weight. And it's just going to be a little more hands on than it has been in the past. Actually, a lot more hands on than it has been in the past. Um, and so they can just contact me through my website. It's
Okay.
Dr.
Which
Toomer,
is, yeah.
drtoomer.com. That's drtoomer.com. And just send me a message. Or there's also links to all the programs in my website as well. But if you just want a consultation, contact me. If you want to talk to me to figure out which would work best for you, that's the way to go.
Okay. Thank you so much. And so we'll put all of that in the show comments. Thank you so much, Dr. Toomer, for being
Hmm.
with us,
Thank you.
sharing your journey. You are such an
Hmm.
inspiration.
Well,
And
thank
I
you.
love that, you didn't just help yourself, you reached back and helped so many others,
Well, thank
myself
you.
included.
Well,
And,
thank
you're
you.
just a joy and a delight. And it's
Oh,
been my
thank you.
pleasure to have you tonight.
Thank you. And thank you, Tawana, for doing the Cliff Notes a lot.
Yes, yes.
She
Thank
would
you.
get
Thank you, Tawana.
Dr. Gilliard. Thank you. Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this so much.
All right, guys, take care. I will put Dr.
Bye.
Toomer's information in the comments. Feel free to share this with your friends. Let everybody know because she is the real deal. Take
Thank
care. Good
you.
night.
Good night.